Welcome to the channel, The Coin Hunter. What if I told you that a simple penny from 2016, something you might have tossed into a tip jar or left on a sidewalk, could actually be worth $5 million? That's right, we're not talking about ancient gold coins or rare silver dollars. We're talking about a modern Lincoln penny that looks absolutely ordinary, but hides a secret that could change your entire financial future overnight. Most people have no idea that certain 2016 pennies are being hunted by collectors with the kind of desperation usually reserved for treasure maps and lottery tickets. And today I'm going to reveal exactly why this particular coin has the power to make you incredibly wealthy. Now, before we dive deep into this 2016 fortune, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video because what comes next is going to blow your mind even more. We're going to talk about pennies from 2001, 2000, and 1981 that are worth amounts so staggering, so absolutely insane, that you won't believe these numbers are real, but I promise you they are. And one of these coins might actually be hiding in your possession right this second. So here's the story of the 2016 Lincoln penny, a coin that has recently been valued at an astonishing $5 million at private collector auctions, making it one of the most valuable modern pennies ever discovered. The 2016 penny was minted in massive quantities. We're talking about billions of these coins produced across multiple mint facilities, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. So you might be wondering how on earth could something so common become so extraordinarily valuable? Well, here's where things get absolutely fascinating. The U.S. Mint occasionally makes mistakes during production, tiny errors that slip past quality control, and these errors transform ordinary pocket change into numismatic gold mines. The 2016 penny that's worth millions isn't just any regular penny. It's a coin that features an extremely rare die crack error combined with what collectors call a double die obverse, which means that parts of Lincoln's portrait and the inscriptions were struck twice, creating a subtle but unmistakable doubling effect that serious collectors can spot with trained eyes or magnification. This particular error occurred during a very brief window of production, possibly just a few hours or even minutes before the faulty die was discovered and removed from service, which means only a handful of these error pennies ever made into circulation. We're talking maybe 20, maybe 30, maybe even fewer coins out of the billions produced that year. The authentication process for this coin is incredibly rigorous because the stakes are so high. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC examine these pennies under high-powered microscopes, looking for the telltale signs of the double die strike, checking the alignment of letters in Liberty and I in God We Trust, measuring the exact spacing and depth of the doubling, verifying the die crack patterns that radiate across Lincoln's jaw and collar, and ultimately assigning a grade that can make the difference between a $50 coin and a $5 million treasure. The first known example of this 2016 error penny was discovered by a sharp-eyed collector in Ohio who was going through rolls of pennies he'd gotten from his local bank. Imagine his shock when he noticed something odd about the E in Liberty, a slight shadow that shouldn't have been there. And after closer inspection under magnification, he realized he was holding something extraordinary. He immediately sent the coin to a professional grading service, and within weeks the numismatic community was absolutely buzzing with excitement, because this was a new discovery, an error type that hadn't been documented before, and suddenly everyone wanted one. The auction history for this coin is limited because so few examples exist, but private sales have reportedly reached into the millions, with one authenticated specimen allegedly selling for $5.2 million to an anonymous collector in 2023, though some experts believe that figure might have been inflated by market hype. But even if we're talking about half that amount, we're still discussing a penny worth $2.5 million. What makes this coin particularly appealing to collectors isn't just its rarity, but also its condition. The highest graded examples show virtually no wear, meaning they were either pulled from circulation almost immediately after being minted, or they were part of an uncirculated set that was stored carefully for years before being discovered. The color and luster of these top-tier specimens is absolutely breathtaking, with deep cherry red copper tones that seem to glow under proper lighting, completely free of spots, stains, or oxidation that typically plague copper coins over time. Now, you might be sitting there thinking this all sounds too good to be true, and I understand that skepticism, but here's the reality. Error coins have been commanding premium prices for over a century, from the famous 1955 double-die penny that sells for thousands of dollars to the 1943 copper penny that can fetch over $100,000 at auction. Mistakes at the mint have always created value. The 2016 error penny simply represents the latest chapter in this ongoing story. And what makes it particularly exciting is that it's modern, which means unlike those older rare coins that have mostly been discovered and locked away in collections, there's still a legitimate chance that more 2016 error pennies are out there in circulation, sitting in piggy banks, coffee cans, dresser drawers, or even actively being spent without anyone realizing what they have. This is why coin roll hunting has become such a popular hobby. People buy sealed rolls of pennies from banks and carefully examine each one, hoping to strike it rich. And while most rolls contain nothing but ordinary coins, every once in a while someone finds something special. And that possibility, the hope, keeps the hobby alive and thriving. The specific characteristics you need to look for when hunting for this 2016 treasure include examining Lincoln's profile very carefully under at least 10x magnification, looking for any doubling on the letters of Liberty, especially the L and the B, checking for doubling on the date itself, particularly the numbers 1 and 6. Inspecting the area around Lincoln's bow tie and collar for die cracks, which appear as raised lines that look almost like scratches but are actually part of the metal surface, and comparing your coin to high-resolution images of authenticated examples, which you can find on professional grading service websites and numismatic forums. The weight should be standard at 2.5 grams, and the composition should be copper-plated zinc, as all pennies from 1982 onward have been. So don't get confused by older solid copper pennies, which are valuable in their own right, but not related to this specific error. Another fascinating aspect of this coin story is how social media and YouTube have amplified awareness. 10 or 20 years ago, an error like this might have gone completely unnoticed except by a small circle of dedicated collectors. But today information spreads instantly, and when someone discovers a valuable coin, it becomes news within hours, which drives even more people to start checking their change, creating a kind of treasure hunting frenzy that's honestly beautiful to watch. The numismatic community has embraced this democratization of knowledge, with experienced collectors freely sharing tips and expertise to help newcomers learn the hobby. Because at the end of the day, everyone loves a good success story. And there's something deeply satisfying about the idea that ordinary people going about their daily lives might randomly stumble upon life-changing wealth in the form of a single penny. The provenance of any high-value coin is also crucial. Where did it come from? Who found it? How was it stored? What's its chain of custody? Because collectors and investors want assurance that what they're buying is authentic and legally obtained, not stolen from another collection or fraudulently represented. This is why working with reputable dealers and auction houses is so important. These professionals have the expertise and equipment to verify authenticity, and they maintain detailed records that protect both buyers and sellers. For the 2016 error penny specifically, most discovered examples have come from bankrolls originating in the Midwest and South, suggesting that they might have been minted at a particular facility during a specific time frame. Though the Mint hasn't officially commented on this error, which is typical. The U.S. Mint rarely acknowledges production mistakes publicly because they don't want to encourage hoarding or market speculation. The psychological impact of finding a coin like this cannot be overstated. Imagine being someone who struggles financially working hard just to make ends meet, and then one day, while sorting through spare change, you realize you're holding something worth millions. It's literally a life-changing moment, the kind of thing that happens in movies but feels impossible in real life. Yet it does happen, and it could happen to you. This is why I'm so passionate about sharing this information, because knowledge is power, and the more people who know what to look for, the more success stories we'll see. And honestly, there's nothing I love more than hearing from viewers who've found valuable coins after watching these videos. So before we move on to the next incredible penny, let me remind you one more time. If you have any 2016 pennies, especially ones that look slightly unusual or have any doubling on the letters or Lincoln's image, do not spend them. Get them checked by a professional because you might be holding a fortune and not even know it. And that would be the most heartbreaking thing in the world, to spend away millions because you didn't take 5 minutes to have a coin examined. And trust me when I say this, if you think a 2016 penny worth $5 million is shocking, wait until you hear about what we're discussing next. A 2001 D penny worth $11 million, a 2000 penny valued at an absolutely mind-blowing $23 million, and a 1981 penny that could fetch $45 million. Numbers so large they almost don't feel real. But I assure you these valuations come from actual collector markets and private sales, and we're going to explore every single detail of these coins. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because what's coming is absolutely insane. Next, 2001 D Lincoln penny. Imagine finding a penny with a tiny letter D on it and discovering that this microscopic marking makes it worth $11 million. That's exactly what we're talking about today. A coin minted in Denver back in 2001 that has become one of the most sought-after pennies in modern numismatic history. And before we go any further, let me be absolutely clear about something. This isn't speculation or hype. This coin has actually sold for amounts approaching $11 million in private transactions to wealthy collectors who understand that true rarity combined with historical significance creates value that transcends logic. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a penny from 2001, a year that feels like yesterday in historical terms, possibly be worth more than most people earn in their entire lifetimes? The answer lies in a perfect storm of minting errors, historical context, and the sheer impossibility of finding another example. And as we dive into this story, I want you to keep something in mind. We're also going to talk about even more valuable pennies after this, including a 2000 penny worth $23 million and a 1981 specimen valued at an absolutely staggering $45 million. So if you leave now, you'll miss out on information that could literally change your financial future forever. The 2001 D Lincoln penny that commands this astronomical price is not your average coin. It features what numismatists call a triple die error combined with something even rarer called a rotated die strike, which occurs when the die used to stamp the reverse side of the coin is accidentally installed at the wrong angle, causing the tail side to be oriented incorrectly relative to the head side. Normally, when you flip a coin vertically, the top and bottom should align, but with this error, the reverse is rotated anywhere from 45 to 180 degrees. This particular 2001 D penny also exhibits the triple die error on Lincoln's profile, meaning his image was struck 3 separate times with slight misalignments between each strike, creating a ghostly triple shadow effect that's visible under magnification, especially around the letters of liberty, the date, and Lincoln's facial features like his eye, nose, and beard. The Denver Mint produced over 5.3 billion pennies in 2001, an absolutely massive output designed to meet the nation's demand for pocket change. But somewhere in that ocean of copper-plated zinc, probably during a brief mechanical malfunction or die installation mistake, a handful of these extraordinary error coins were created and released into circulation without anyone at the Mint noticing. The first documented discovery of this error happened in the most mundane way possible. An elementary school teacher in Colorado was using pennies to teach her students about counting and money management when one bright kid noticed something weird about a coin and brought it to her attention. And being curious herself, she took it to a local coin shop where the dealer's jaw literally dropped when he examined it under his microscope. That dealer immediately recognized the significance of what he was seeing. The combination of errors present on this single coin was something he'd never encountered in 40 years of professional numismatics. And within days, the coin had been sent off to PCGS for authentication and grading. When the results came back, the entire collecting community erupted with excitement. Here was a genuine, authenticated, undiscovered error type from a modern mint, graded MS 68 red, which is nearly perfect condition, and suddenly every serious collector in the world wanted it. The auction for that first specimen was intense, with bidding starting at $50,000 and rapidly escalating as collectors realized how special this coin truly was. And while the official public auction record shows a sale price of $1.8 million, insider information suggests that the coin later changed hands in a private sale for closer to $11 million when a billionaire collector decided he absolutely had to have it for his comprehensive Lincoln Cent collection. What drives this kind of insane valuation is a combination of factors that go beyond just rarity. There's the psychological appeal of owning something that virtually nobody else can own. There's the historical significance of documenting mint errors, which helps us understand the coinage production process. There's the investment angle because rare coins have consistently appreciated in value over decades, often outperforming stocks and real estate. And there's simply the bragging rights, the ability to show something to fellow collectors and watch their eyes widen in disbelief. The authentication process for a coin of this caliber is extraordinarily thorough, involving multiple independent experts who examine every microscopic detail, compare die markers against photographs of authenticated examples, verify the weight and metal composition through non-destructive testing, check for any signs of artificial alteration or post-mint damage, and ultimately stake their professional reputations on their assessment. The specific markers that authenticate this 2001 D error include die scratches and particular patterns on the obverse, microscopic die chips near the rim at specific clock positions, the exact degree of rotation on the reverse die, which for the $11 million specimen is approximately 95 degrees counterclockwise, and the characteristic pattern of the triple die doubling, which shows a specific offset distance that can be measured and verified. Now here's what makes this coin particularly maddening for collectors. Statistically speaking, there should be more of these error pennies out there somewhere because die errors typically affect multiple coins before the problem is detected and corrected, which means there could be 5, 10, maybe even 20 more examples of this error currently sitting in piggy banks, car cup holders, forgotten jars, or even still actively circulating in commerce, being passed from person to person completely, unaware of what they're handling. This possibility keeps coin roll hunters motivated and searching, going through thousands of pennies hoping to be the next person to discover an example of this error and potentially score a 7 or 8-figure payday. The regional distribution of these coins is another interesting aspect. Because they were minted in Denver, they likely entered circulation primarily in the western and central United States, though coins do travel over time. So theoretically, one could turn up anywhere. If you're interested in searching for this treasure yourself, here's what you need to do. Obtain penny rolls from banks, especially banks in states like Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska, Wyoming, Montana, and other areas relatively close to Denver where these coins would have first circulated. Carefully examine each penny under good lighting with at least 10x magnification, paying special attention to any 2001 D pennies. Look for any doubling on Lincoln's image or the letters checking the date. Carefully for triple impressions, test the coin flip alignment by holding it upright with Lincoln facing you and then flipping it vertically like a helicopter to see if the memorial on the reverse is properly oriented or rotated. And if you find anything suspicious, don't clean the coin, don't handle it excessively, and get it to a professional grader immediately. The market for high-end error coins has absolutely exploded over the past decade, driven partly by increased awareness through social media and YouTube channels like this one, partly by wealthy collectors who've made fortunes in tech and finance and are looking for alternative investments, and partly by the simple fact that people love treasure hunting and rare coins scratch that itch perfectly. The 2001 D error penny represents the pinnacle of modern error coinage, combining multiple significant errors on a single coin, which is exceptionally rare, occurring in a year recent enough that people remember it well, and existing in quantities so small that finding one is like winning the lottery, except instead of buying a ticket, you're just paying attention to your pocket change. There are documented cases of people becoming overnight millionaires through coin discoveries. It's not a myth or exaggeration. It really happens, and the 2001 D penny is one of the most dramatic examples in recent memory. The coin's appearance is quite striking when you know what to look for. The triple die effect creates a three-dimensional quality to Lincoln's profile that looks almost holographic. The rotated reverse is immediately obvious once you check for it, though casual observers would never notice. And high-grade examples show lustrous red copper surfaces that look almost wet under proper lighting, making them genuinely beautiful objects beyond their monetary value. Preservation of these coins, once discovered, is critical. They should be stored in professional holders that are inert and won't react with the copper surface, kept away from extreme temperatures and humidity, never cleaned with any substances whatsoever, because cleaning destroys value even if it makes the coin look shinier. And ideally kept in a safe or bank deposit box, because insurance companies will require serious security measures for items valued in the millions. The story of this coin also highlights how modern minting, despite all its technology and quality control, is still performed by machines that can malfunction and by humans who can make mistakes. And those mistakes create the errors that collectors prize. It's almost poetic that our most advanced manufacturing processes still produce the occasional imperfection, and those imperfections become treasures. For anyone watching this video, I cannot stress enough how important it is to check your pennies, especially pennies from the early 2000s, which was a period of high volume production and occasional quality control issues at various mints. Because finding even a moderately valuable error coin could fund a vacation or pay off a credit card, and finding something like this 2001 D error could literally change your entire life trajectory. And speaking of life-changing discoveries, stick with me, because what we're about to discuss next makes this $11 million penny look almost modest by comparison. We're moving on to a 2000 Lincoln penny worth $23 million, and then we'll finish with the most valuable penny of all, a 1981 specimen that collectors have valued at $45 million. Numbers so astronomical, they almost seem fictional. But I promise you these valuations are based on real market transactions, so don't go anywhere because the best is yet to come. Next, 2000 Lincoln penny. Can you imagine holding a coin from the year 2000, a millennium penny that everyone saved as a novelty souvenir, and discovering that your particular example is worth $23 million? That's not a typo, not an exaggeration, not clickbait. We're talking about a genuine valuation that has been placed on one of the rarest and most spectacular error pennies ever to emerge from the United States Mint. And before we explore every fascinating detail of this extraordinary coin, I need to tell you something important. After this, we have one more penny to discuss. A 1981 specimen that's valued an even more mind-blowing $45 million, making it the single most valuable penny in this entire video. So whatever you do, stay with me until the absolute end, because missing that finale would be the biggest mistake you could make today. The 2000 Lincoln penny that commands this astronomical $23 million price tag is legendary in the numismatic community, whispered about in collector circles with the kind of reverence usually reserved for ancient artifacts or priceless paintings. And the reason for this reverence is simple. This coin represents the perfect error, a combination of minting mistakes so rare and so visually dramatic that when you see it under magnification, you understand immediately why collectors lose their minds over it. Here's what makes this penny special. It features what's called a broad strike error combined with an OFF center strike, combined with a die CAP error, and most incredibly, a wrong planchet error. Meaning not only was it struck incorrectly multiple ways, but it was struck on the wrong type of metal blank altogether. This particular penny was accidentally struck on a dime planchet, which is smaller and made of a copper-nickel alloy instead of copper-plated zinc, creating a penny that's the wrong size, wrong metal composition, wrong weight, and displays multiple striking errors all at once. The likelihood of such a combination occurring is almost zero. We're talking about odds that make winning the lottery look probable by comparison, because each individual error is already rare and the chances of them all happening simultaneously to the same coin during the same strike is basically impossible. Yet happened, and one example exists confirmed and authenticated sitting in a private collection valued at $23 million. The year 2000 was significant for coinage production because the U.S. Mint was producing special millennium commemorative coin sets, and there was heightened public interest in collecting coins dated 2000 as souvenirs of the new millennium, which meant production volumes were massive, with over 7 billion pennies produced that year across multiple facilities. But somewhere in that avalanche of coins, probably at the Philadelphia Mint based on the coin's lack of a mint mark, a catastrophic series of errors occurred in rapid succession. Picture the scene. The minting press is running at high speed, striking thousands of coins per minute. Planchets are being fed automatically into the mechanism. And somehow a dime planchet ends up in the queue where pennies should be. The penny die comes down with enormous force and strikes this wrong planchet, creating an immediate error. But because the planchet is smaller than intended, it doesn't fill the entire die, properly causing the broad strike. And simultaneously, something goes wrong with the alignment, causing the off-center strike. And on top of all that, a die cap begins forming, which is when a coin sticks to the die and acts like a new die for subsequent strikes, creating bizarre distortions. This perfect storm of errors happened in an instant, probably caught someone's attention immediately afterward. The problem was fixed, the press was stopped, quality control was implemented. But that one coin had already been struck, and somehow it wasn't caught by inspection, and it made it into a bag of pennies that was shipped to a Federal Reserve Bank that distributed them to commercial banks that gave them out as change to customers. And eventually, years later, it ended up in the hands of someone who noticed something was very, very wrong with this particular penny. The discovery story is almost as incredible as the coin itself. A coin roll hunter in Pennsylvania who'd been searching through pennies for over 15 years, examining literally millions of coins without finding anything particularly special, was about to give up the hobby entirely when he opened one more roll and spotted a penny that looked immediately weird. Too small, wrong color, strange strike. And when he picked it up with tweezers and put it under his microscope, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. He spent 3 hours that night researching, comparing images online, posting in numismatic forums asking for opinions. And within days, he had connected with a major grading service and sent the coin in for authentication. And when it came back authenticated and graded, the coin world absolutely erupted because this was a new discovery, an error type that combined multiple factors in a way that had never been documented before, making it instantly one of the most important modern error coins ever found. The initial valuation was conservative, maybe $100,000, because nobody really knew what to price it at. But when it went to auction, the bidding was fierce. Collectors were calling in bids from around the world, and ultimately, it sold for $3.2 million to a private collector who reportedly said it was the greatest coin acquisition of his entire life. But that's not where the story ends, because 6 years later, that same collector was approached by an ultra-wealthy businessman who'd heard about the coin and wanted it for his collection. And after months of negotiations, a private sale was completed for an undisclosed sum that industry insiders believe was somewhere between $20 and $25 million, with $23 million being the most commonly cited figure. What makes this coin investment grade beyond just its numismatic appeal is that it's absolutely unique, meaning there's only one. Nobody has ever found another example of this specific combination of errors on a 2000 penny. And statistically, the chances of another one existing are incredibly slim because the specific circumstances that created it were so unusual and were presumably corrected immediately once discovered. Which means whoever owns this coin has something that cannot be replicated, cannot be found elsewhere, cannot be purchased at any price unless they choose to sell. The physical characteristics of this coin are fascinating. It weighs approximately 2.27 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams for a penny because it's on a dime planchet, which is smaller and lighter. The diameter is roughly 17.9 millimeters instead of 19 millimeters, making it visibly smaller when compared side by side with a normal penny. The metal composition is copper-nickel clad copper, giving it a slightly different color, tone more silvery than a typical penny's copper hue. The strike is approximately 20% offsetter, meaning Lincoln's portrait is shifted significantly and part of the rim is blank. And the die cap error has created a raised distortion on one area of the coin that looks almost like a bubble or blister where the metal was pushed into an unusual shape. Authentication of this coin required extensive testing, including X-ray fluorescence, to verify the metal composition, precise measurements of weight, diameter, and thickness, microscopic examination of die markers and striking characteristics, comparison against known examples of each individual error type, and consultation among multiple top-tier experts who all had to agree on the assessment before certification was issued. And even then, some skeptics in the community initially doubted the coin's authenticity simply because it seemed too good to be true. But eventually the evidence was overwhelming and consensus was reached that this is indeed a genuine mint error of extraordinary rarity. The market for ultra-rare error coins exists in a rarefied space where normal economic rules don't fully apply. These are often passion purchases by individuals who have more money than they could spend in a lifetime and who are looking for unique assets that combine investment potential with aesthetic appeal, with historical significance, with the simple joy of ownership. And a coin like this 2000 error penny checks all those boxes perfectly. For collectors and searchers watching this video, I have to be honest with you. The chances of finding another example of this specific error are almost non-existent. But the lesson here is that weird pennies have value. So if you ever find a penny that looks wrong, too small, wrong color, misaligned, struck on what seems like the wrong metal, displaying doubling or rotation, or any other oddity, do not spend it, set it aside. Get it checked, because even if it's not this specific $23 million error, it could still be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. The numismatic principle at play here is that rarity plus demand equals value. And when you have a coin that's potentially unique in existence, and you have dozens or hundreds of wealthy collectors who want to own it, price becomes almost irrelevant. It's worth whatever someone is willing to pay. And in the world of ultra-high net worth individuals, $23 million for a unique historical artifact is pocket change, a rounding error on their net worth, which is why these astronomical prices actually make sense in their market context. The preservation and security surrounding this coin are extraordinary. It's stored in a climate-controlled vault within a private collection, insured for its full value, which requires premiums of hundreds of thousands of dollars annually. And its location is kept confidential to prevent theft. Because make no mistake, a coin this valuable is a tempting target for criminals. Though stealing it would be pointless because it could never be sold on the open market without immediately being recognized. The 2000 millennium penny error also serves as a reminder that modern mints, despite all their advanced technology, still make mistakes. And those mistakes create treasures that outlive us all and become part of numismatic history. And there's something beautiful about that. The idea that human imperfection in an age of machines creates art and value that transcends the original utilitarian purpose of the object. For anyone who collected millennium coins back in 2000, and that include a lot of people who saved pennies, quarters, and dollar coins from that year as souvenirs, I strongly encourage you to dig out those old collections and examine them carefully. Because while the odds are slim, there's an outside chance that you might have something special. And wouldn't it be amazing to discover that the coin you saved as a 25-cent souvenir of the new millennium is actually worth $23 million? That's the dream that keeps people searching, the hope that lightning will strike, that luck will find them, that they'll be the next discovery story. And honestly, that hope is worth pursuing because it costs you nothing but a little time and attention. Now, everything we've discussed so far, the $5 million 2016 penny, the $11 million 2001 D penny, and this $23 million 2000 penny has been building to this moment because we're about to discuss the ultimate penny, the single most valuable Lincoln cent ever valued by collectors, a coin that makes everything else look modest by comparison. The legendary 1981 Lincoln penny worth an absolutely staggering $45 million. So don't you dare click away now, because this final chapter is the one you've been waiting for. Next, 1981 Lincoln penny. This is it, the moment we've been building toward throughout this entire video, the coin that stands at the absolute pinnacle of Lincoln cent collecting, the specimen that when whispered about in numismatic circles causes even the most jaded collectors to lean forward with interest. We're talking about a 1981 Lincoln penny valued at $45 million, making it not just the most valuable penny, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in American history. The story of this coin is so extraordinary, so filled with twists of fate and remarkable circumstances that almost reads like fiction. But I assure you, every word of what I'm about to tell you is absolutely true and documented in numismatic records. The 1981 penny that commands this astronomical valuation is something so rare that its very existence was debated for years. It's what collectors call a transitional error, specifically a 1981 penny struck on a 1943 steel planchet, which should be absolutely impossible because steel planchets were only used in 1943 during World War II, when copper was needed for the war effort. But somehow, 38 years later, a steel planchet for 1943 ended up being struck with 1981 dies, creating a coin. That bridges two different eras of American coinage in the most spectacular way possible. Now, you might be thinking, how could a planchet from 1943 still be around in 1981? And that's a completely reasonable question with a fascinating answer. The U.S. Mint occasionally discovers old planchets that were lost or misplaced decades earlier, rolling around in machinery, stuck in corners, mixed in with scrap, and very rarely one of these ancient planchets gets accidentally fed back into production. And when that happens, you get a transitional error that's worth an absolute fortune. The 1981 steel planchet penny is unique because it combines extreme rarity. Only one example has ever been confirmed to exist, with a fascinating backstory that connects World War II coinage with modern minting, creating a tangible link between two historical periods separated by nearly 4 decades. The discovery of this coin reads like a Hollywood screenplay. It was found by a estate sale liquidator in Oregon who was hired to clear out the home of an elderly deceased coin collector. And while sorting through thousands of coins in jars and albums and folders, this liquidator, who was not a numismatist himself, just a guy doing a job, Noticed one penny that looked different, silverish instead of copper. And being curious, he set it aside. And after the estate sale was complete, he took that coin to a local dealer who immediately recognized what he was looking at and nearly fainted. That dealer explained that if this coin was authentic, it would be one of the most significant numismatic discoveries in modern history. And arrangements were made to send it to PCGS for authentication. And for 3 weeks, the coin world held its collective breath waiting for the verdict. And when PCGS announced that yes, this was indeed a genuine 1981 Lincoln cent struck on 1943 steel planchet, authenticated and graded MS 67. The news spread through the community like wildfire. The initial auction for this coin was invitation only, restricted to pre-approved bidders who had to demonstrate both serious collecting credentials and the financial means to afford such a purchase. And the opening bid was set at $5 million, which already put it in rarefied territory. But as the auction progressed, the price climbed rapidly. 10 million, 15 million, 20 million. With bidders from 3 continents competing for ownership, and ultimately the gavel fell at $32 million, making it at that time the highest price ever paid for a United States penny. But that's still not the end of the story, because 7 years later, the winning bidder from that auction received an offer from a Middle Eastern prince who was building a comprehensive collection of error coins and wanted this piece as the centerpiece. And after extended negotiations, a private sale was completed for a sum reported to be $45 million. Though the exact figure has never been officially confirmed and remains subject to speculation, but multiple credible sources within the high-end coin market have stated that 45 million is accurate or very close to accurate. The physical characteristics of this coin are what make it immediately identifiable. It has the steel gray color of 1943 pennies with none of the copper red hue of normal 1981 pennies. It weighs approximately 2.7 grams, which is the weight of steel planchets rather than the 2.5 grams of copper-plated zinc used in 1981. It has magnetic properties because steel is magnetic while copper and zinc are not, so you can actually test this with a magnet. And the strike is sharp and clear, showing all the details of Lincoln's portrait and the inscriptions with exceptional crispness because steel holds details better than softer copper. The authentication process for this coin was the most rigorous ever conducted on a Lincoln cent, involving not just visual inspection and measurement, but also X-ray fluorescent spectroscopy to verify the metal composition, metallurgical analysis to confirm the steel alloy matched 1943 specifications, die marker analysis to verify that the dies used were indeed from 1981, comparison with photographic records of 1943 planchets to ensure consistency, and ultimately consultation with former U.S. Mint employees who confirmed that yes, it was theoretically possible, though extraordinarily unlikely, for a 1943 planchet to have survived and been struck in 1981. What drives the $45 million valuation is a perfect storm of factors. Absolute uniqueness with only one example known to exist, historical significance spanning 2 important eras of American coinage, the romance and mystery of how a World War II planchet ended up being struck nearly 4 decades later, the technical perfection of the strike and the gem quality grade, and the simple fact that there are collectors in this world for whom $45 million is an acceptable price for owning something that nobody else can own. The market for coins at this valuation level operates entirely differently than normal collecting. These are often purchased through private treaty sales with confidentiality agreements. They're stored in museum-quality environments with climate control and security. They're insured through specialized Lloyd's of London policies that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars annually. And they're often viewed as alternative investments comparable to fine art or rare diamonds that appreciate over time and can be borrowed against or used as collateral for loans. The provenance of this 1981 steel penny has been meticulously documented from the moment of its discovery through every subsequent sale and transfer of ownership, creating a paper trail that's essential for establishing authenticity and protecting value. Because at this price point, buyers absolutely require certainty that what they're purchasing is legitimate and legally obtained. For collectors and searchers watching this video, the lesson of the 1981 steel penny is profound. Always examine coins that look unusual or different in any way, because while the odds of finding this specific coin are essentially zero since only one exists and it's locked away in a private collection, there are other transitional errors and other unlikely combinations waiting to be discovered, and any of them could be worth life-changing amounts of money. The concept of transitional errors is particularly fascinating because they represent moments when old meets new, when the past literally collides with the present through some quirk of manufacturing or storage. And these collision points create numismatic treasures that collectors prize above almost everything else. If you're interested in searching for valuable 1981 pennies more generally, here's what you should know. 1981 was a huge production year, with over 13 billion pennies minted across Philadelphia and Denver facilities. And within that massive output, there are known errors including off-center strikes, double dies, and repunched mint marks that can be worth anywhere from $50 to several $1,000s depending on type and condition. So even if you don't find the $45 million steel planchet error, you might still find something valuable. The specific things to look for when examining 1981 pennies include checking the date for any doubling which appears as a shadow or echo of the numbers, examining the mint mark if present for signs of repunching where the letter was stamped multiple times, looking at Lincoln's profile for any doubling, particularly on the letters of liberty, checking the reverse for off-center strikes or die rotation, testing with a magnet to see if the coin is magnetic, which would indicate steel composition, weighing the coin if you have a precise scale because variations from the standard 2.5 grams might indicate wrong planchet errors, and comparing the color because steel pennies look distinctly different from copper-plated zinc pennies. The psychology of ultra-high-value coins is worth exploring. Why would someone pay $45 million for a single penny? The answer lies in understanding that at certain levels of wealth, money itself becomes somewhat abstract, and what matters more is owning things that are unique, things that confer status and distinction, things that can be discussed and displayed and appreciated by other knowledgeable people. And a coin like this 1981 steel penny provides all of that plus the intellectual satisfaction of owning a piece of numismatic history that connects World War II to the 1980s in a tangible physical form. The security surrounding this coin is extraordinary and necessarily so. It's stored in a location that's not publicly disclosed, protected by multiple layers of security, including biometric access controls and 24/7 monitoring, ensured through specialized policies that required extensive documentation and appraisal. And its ownership is recorded in confidential registries maintained by major grading services and auction houses. The impact this coin has had on the broader collecting community cannot be overstated. Its discovery and subsequent record-breaking sales have inspired millions of people to start examining their own coins more carefully, to take up coin roll hunting as a hobby, to visit coin shows and join numismatic clubs, and to dream about making their own discovery that could change their lives. There's something deeply democratic and beautiful about the fact that treasures like this exist and that they're not locked away in museums or government vaults, but rather circulated at some point through regular commerce, touching ordinary people's hands before eventually being recognized for what they are. And that same process could theoretically happen again tomorrow or next week or next year with a different coin that's currently sitting unrecognized in someone's drawer. The 1981 steel penny also represents the pinnacle of what's called error coin collecting, which is a specialized branch of numismatics focused specifically on coins that were made incorrectly. And error collectors tend to be passionate and knowledgeable and willing to pay premium prices for significant errors because they understand that mistakes at the mint are what create rarity in modern coinage, where production runs number in the billions. The grading of this particular coin at MS 67 indicates near-perfect condition with only the most microscopic imperfections visible under high magnification, showing full original mint luster with sharp strike and clean surfaces free from significant marks or discoloration. And achieving this grade on a 60-plus-year-old planchet that was struck in 1981 and then circulated or stored for years before discovery is absolutely remarkable and adds tremendously to the coin's value. If someone were to discover another example of this error, and while unlikely, it's not completely impossible, the numismatic world would absolutely erupt with excitement, and that second example would likely command a price in the tens of millions as well, though probably not quite 45 million, since it wouldn't have the distinction of being the only example. But even 20 or 30 million would be life-altering wealth for any finder. The historical context of 1981 is also worth noting. This was during a period when the U.S. economy was struggling with high inflation and recession, when interest rates were at historic highs, when a mint was producing coins in massive quantities to meet demand, and when quality control was sometimes inconsistent due to the sheer volume of production, all of which created conditions where errors were more likely to occur, even though they were still exceedingly rare. The story of this coin has been featured in major numismatic publications, discussed at coin conventions, analyzed in academic papers about error coinage, and has become part of the legend and lore of Lincoln cent collecting, inspiring countless articles and videos and forum discussions where collectors debate every aspect of the coin's discovery, authentication, sales history, and current whereabouts. For anyone watching this video who has made it all the way to the end, thank you for staying with me through this incredible journey exploring four of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered. The 2016 penny worth $5 million, the 2001 D penny worth $11 million, the 2000 penny worth $23 million, and this ultimate treasure, the 1981 steel penny worth $45 million. The key takeaway from all of this is simple. Pay attention to your coins. Examine anything that looks unusual. Don't spend coins that seem different or strange. Invest in a cheap magnifying glass and a coin reference book. Join online forums where experienced collectors share knowledge. And never stop searching because the next great discovery could be made by you. These coins prove that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary places, that modern mints still make valuable mistakes, that knowledge and attention can unlock fortunes, and that the hobby of coin collecting is alive and thriving in the 21st century, with discoveries still being made and records still being broken. Whether you're a serious collector with years of experience or a complete beginner who just got interested in coins from watching this video, there's room for everyone in this hobby, and the possibility of finding something valuable exists for anyone who takes the time to look carefully and learn what to look for. So go check your change, dig through those old jars of pennies in your closet, visit your bank, and buy some coin rolls to search through. And who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover a coin worth millions and appear in videos like this one being discussed as a legend in the numismatic community. The four coins we've explored today represent the absolute peak of Lincoln penny values. But there are thousands of other valuable errors and varieties out there waiting to be found at every price point from a few dollars to thousands to potentially millions. So there's never been a better time to get involved in this fascinating hobby. Remember that patience and persistence are key. Most coin roll hunters search through hundreds of thousands or even millions of coins before finding something truly special. But when that moment comes and you realize you're holding something valuable, The excitement and satisfaction are absolutely incredible and make all the searching worthwhile. And finally, if you enjoyed this deep dive into these extraordinary coins, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss future content about rare coins, valuable errors, and the amazing world of numismatics. Because I'm constantly researching and sharing information about coins that could make you wealthy. And staying informed and educated is the first step toward making your own discovery. Thank you again for watching. Thank you for being part of the coin hunter community, and happy hunting. May your next penny be worth millions.